Hello and welcome to the Art of Transitions. My name is Gwen Mazza and I am your host. It is our pleasure to share a show with you that is dedicated to the understanding and appreciation of life's changes. We're going to take some time today and speak with our guest about transitioning through life experiences as it relates to the process of being in the world of work, moving into the transition of being a parent, and then returning to the world of work. Our guest today is Yvette Brindle-Decancq, and she is a resident here in Penfield and has agreed to come and be with us today. Please stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Today our guest is Yvette Brindle-Decancq. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And Yvette has agreed to come in and be with us so we can talk about what it's like to be in the world of work and what it's like to move into the process of becoming a mom, and then again the transition of moving into becoming a professional again. We've spent time together in the past, so I've had the honor of knowing you for quite a while, and we've asked you to be a guest on this show because I think and I feel like your experience has been very natural and very much similar to what other people experience. So how about if we start with what a transition is, which is actually the emotional change that individuals go through. It's not actually the physical change, it's the emotional change that folks experience as they make choices and decisions and new beginnings and make endings. So Yvette, where would you like to start?
In the beginning, I guess.
Let's start in the beginning.
If we talk a little bit about, in regard to parenting, I real briefly, parenting was not necessarily something that I was absolutely going to be doing.
Right.
It was something that I certainly thought about. Once I met my husband and got into a relationship, we married a little bit older in life, so I was already into my career at that point and had pretty much seen myself doing that forever.
What kind of career choices had you made? I know you have your undergrad degree. I understand that you've got your graduate degree. And I do know because I've been on your journey with you. Right. You've had very varying and different kind of experiences.
Absolutely.
So can you share with our audience today that transformation as well?
Sure. I started out, my undergraduate degree is in management and marketing, and I started out sort of assuming that I would go into the world of business. And I did that for a while, did that for about 4 or 5 years. I worked in the banking industry for some time and wasn't truly satisfied, so that was the first major transition that I experienced. I decided to go back to school and get my graduate degree in educational counseling. And I came out of that knowing that I wanted to go into the drug and alcohol field and be a counselor there for a while.
And that's where I met you.
And that is where you met me. You were my first supervisor as an intern coming out of graduate school. And we worked together for some time. I did that for 4 or 5 years, and I ended up working in higher education, teaching, counseling, and absolutely loving it. And I met my husband during that time, and we got married, and we knew that we wanted to start a family.
What were the thoughts that were running through your mind? Because I know when I was a young professional, I actually didn't really have the thought of having children either. It wasn't until later in life that I actually thought that that might be something I wanted to do. Was very happy with my career, loved my work. That was my baby. And then, sounds like similar to you, something changed.
Absolutely, absolutely. I really, for the first time, started feeling like, you know what, I think I want this. I really do think I want this.
Do you remember how old you were when you started to feel that?
Probably mid-30s, where I knew for sure this was something I think I definitely wanted to try.
Right.
Well, I don't think you try parenthood, do you? You do it.
You either do or you don't.
Right, exactly.
It's one of those.
Absolutely.
It's not like horseshoes where...
No, no.
Right.
And you don't give it back if you decide this wasn't for me. So my husband, he comes from a family of 4 children, and it was definitely something he was interested in. So we talked about when we're very logical. When we decided to get married, we had the talk, and do we want kids, and what does that mean? And for him, growing up with a mom that was home,
Right.
for him it was very important to have a parent, whichever parent, be a major part of raising that child one-on-one. I did not have that growing up. It wasn't as much a part of my value system. So that was a big conversation for us, and we knew it had to be. So what we realized when we did finally get pregnant and we had our daughter, Allison, I was working full-time still, he was working full-time still. We were still talking about what does it mean to put a child into childcare and being home, and what do we want that to look like. And we went through the challenges of being two full-time working parents in very demanding careers.
And careers that you both loved?
Careers we both loved.
Which I think is really where the challenge is for many of us, men and women in our culture, when you really are just enjoying your work so, and then there's this,
Absolutely.
would I like to try this life experience?
Absolutely.
So the transition is the the change is the actual creation and the child arriving.
Absolutely.
There's a lot that goes between the beginning and the final decision to become a parent.
Oh, absolutely.
And sometimes we aren't thinking that through, but if you slowed it down as a movie projector would, those lovely old 8mm frame by frame by frame,
Absolutely.
it would produce quite a picture.
Oh, absolutely. You are so right about that. And I would like to see that sort of cut down like that. That would be an interesting concept. But what we did finally decide is, after it took a while, 2 years of doing the full-time, both of us, and the phone calls from daycare that she's sick, and the phone calls, you know, what do you have going on this afternoon? What do I have going on this afternoon? And again, truly loving what we're doing, you know, there was a big piece of me that I have a daughter, and I want this daughter to grow up to be whatever and whoever she wants to be. And I want to role model that. I want to role model that you can, I don't want to say have it all, because I don't even know what that means. To me, having it all means we're doing what we're comfortable with and what's right for our family. And I think
that's a big point. My sense is each individual really needs to understand, like you just said, that we're doing what's right for our family.
Exactly, exactly. Just kind of going off on a tangent for a second, yesterday afternoon I was at a pool with my daughter, and I started speaking with a gentleman who, long story short, made a comment at one point, and he said, well, now that school's out, I'll be here a lot more. And my response to him immediately was, oh, are you a school teacher? And he looked at me, and there was a hesitation, and he said, no, I'm a stay-at-home dad.
Oh.
And I said, oh, that's so cool.
Yes.
And then we, of course, because I'm me, we started having this conversation, and I asked him, what kind of reactions do you normally get? And he and I just had this great conversation about what he and his wife went through in regard to making their decision, and that his wife knew very clearly that she would not be effective as a full-time stay-at-home mom. And she loved her career, and she made more money. So they made a very natural choice for them, which was Dad's going to stay home, because that was a value that they wanted, someone full-time with their children.
So again, you're bringing forward that point of each family really needs to assess for themselves
Absolutely.
What works best for this unit. So there is no right or wrong answer.
Absolutely. And he and I had some great conversation around, a lot of folks do have very strong opinions, understandably, but making that decision for you and your family. So after 2 years of working full-time, very demanding jobs, both of us working 50 to 70 hours a week, we did realize, you know what, this isn't what we wanted. And we were older parents. So the good and the challenge to that is that I believe that we had some of the level of maturity to make some of the tougher decisions.
And the compromises.
And the compromises. And some of the challenge to that was because I was older, I was also in a career that I was making decent money. And that was a big contributing factor to our family's lifestyle at that point. So we had to have a lot of conversation around what does this mean? And for me, what does it mean to not be contributing as much financially?
Right.
Because I was raised to be very independent, and it is very important to me to this day to know that I personally could take care of myself if I needed to, and my child, which I have no expectation of that, but it's just something within me that is important to me.
I think generationally that's very true for many of women in our culture, or at least those of us who came up through, born in the 60s and 70s and moving into school and into college in the 80s.
Absolutely.
And that is a change, and again, another transformation. And a transformational process, again, starts with an ending somewhere, which is a way of thinking, or an ending an event.
Absolutely.
That creative time in the middle, that transitional time, and then a new beginning.
Absolutely.
And so part of this was challenging some of those values, it sounds like, for you. Is you and Paul were trying to make the decision, how are we going to manage this, because our lives are different.
Absolutely.
Our values have shifted.
Yep.
And we have made a choice.
Right.
As well as how do we offer this child, the grace that this child deserves coming into this world.
Absolutely. Definitely. And we had great conversation around that. And, my husband is very open to that kind of conversation. What is this going to look like? How creative are we going to be if she's sick? Just because we've decided that you are the one who's going to be the primary child caretaker, it doesn't mean that I'm not there if she's sick. We still share responsibilities. And I like when you talk about the creative piece in the middle, because I very much feel like that's what I did. At first, I did stay home for a while, full-time. How
did that feel for you? What was that? I'm actually interested, not only how did that feel, but what was it like for you when you began the thought of, okay, I'm going to go home? Because it doesn't happen by just stepping in the door.
Right.
It's at the office for the first couple of, those next couple of months before you make that final choice, I'm going home. So if you can bring us back just a little bit to that thought process, what were the conversations you were having in your mind at the office as you were making this change?
Sure. I think at first, for me, there was a sense of relief to a great degree. Absolute excitement that I was going to be spending this much time with my child, who I absolutely adore. There was definitely a piece of me, okay, I'll just say, am I going to get bored?
Yes.
Am I going to be challenged enough? And yes, I was, by the way.
Yes.
And still am.
Both bored and challenged
Absolutely.
enough? Yes, yes.
I had conversations with other folks. And I had some people calling me saying, wow, good for you. This is wonderful. I had other friends call me and saying, how can you do this? What do you mean? This is going to be, and a lot in between. So I think at first I was kind of searching for what is that answer, and is this the right choice? And then I realized it's not for anyone else to tell me that. It's for my decision-making process, my child, and my husband. And frankly, what I learned being full-time at home is that wasn't good for me or my child. That I really needed to be out there doing what I loved to do, which was teaching at that point is the thing that I was able to do. And so
you transitioned from being full-time employed, and that piece, do you remember the piece where you're walking out the door of the office into the full-time mommy piece, and you're doing this?
Yes.
And you're stepping into the unknown.
Absolutely.
It's like, where am I headed?
Absolutely.
And then walking in and waking up the first day as the mom and not going to the office.
Right.
And
kind of feeling like I should be somewhere right now. And then looking at my daughter, and actually one of the amazing things to me was that I could sit and draw with her for 3 hours and have a great time doing it.
Right.
So learning that, you know what, this is really cool.
Yes.
And just really, what it allowed me to do is really get a sense of what are the great things about this and what are the great things about this And how do I combine this and find a balance so that I am as comfortable as I can be? And it was wonderful. And I learned what was really good for me. And I firmly believe that happy parents have happier children. And if that means I work full-time, I work part-time, I stay home full-time, whatever that takes, if I am happy, if I am comfortable, that's what I'm role modeling for my child. So I needed to find what is that balance. So Paul and I had a lot of conversation along the way. I had conversation with other parents. I had conversation with her pediatrician, conversations with the teachers at her school where she eventually went back to. And what I did decide is I want to work, so I'm going to do this part-time. And we had to be very creative.
Yes, once again, that time of transition, because there's
Absolutely.
coming and ending.
Absolutely.
And those creative ideas start flowing again.
Yep, absolutely. So we went back, took her back to daycare part-time. I was teaching part-time. I'm home with her part-time. And it's not as easy as I'm making it sound.
That's correct. That's very correct.
There's definitely challenges on all ends. I believe that that was our balance, though. As a family, that was definitely our balance.
That's a key word that I'm hearing that I know for myself as I am parenting and working is keeping pieces in balance, which for me, I don't know about you, but I really have to stop sometimes, pause, look at what's happening around me, seeing where my needs are, my child's needs are, my husband's needs are, anybody else that I'm needing to be connected with are, and then make the best choices I can. And sometimes they aren't always easy.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I remember the days of looking around my house and feeling like, oh my gosh, my house is a mess, and my daughter is talking back to me, and I'm not doing that very well right now, and then something's falling apart at work because I'm not there full time, and it's like I'm not doing any of this well.
Right.
And luckily those moments were less than. Those still happen. It still happens where I feel like I am spreading myself so incredibly thin.
So what do you do in those times?
I kind of step back and realize, where are my priorities? And when my daughter's in the other room saying, Mommy, will you come and I'm washing a cup, to look at the cup and say, you know what, you're going to be here. I need to go sit with my daughter right now. Then recognizing that when I have a big presentation coming up, and my daughter is saying, Mommy, I do need to focus on this, and it's okay to do that. It is okay to do that. And the mommy guilt that people talk about of sort of recognizing that this is for her as well. And how do I teach her that balance? How do I help her recognize that right now, Mom, it's not Mommy anymore, it's Mom. Right now, Mom is working, and this is important. So this is when you and I are going to get together.
How do you feel? How do you feel as a mom? Because I know it's important for me to absolutely enjoy the work that I'm doing, and if I'm not enjoying the work that I'm doing, I need to make a change in that avenue.
Absolutely.
And as a mom, I feel it's very much important for me to be a role model for Sarah, to help her understand she has choices in this world.
Absolutely.
As much as I wouldn't, with my son and my other daughter, they have choices in this world.
Absolutely.
And a real commitment to role modeling that. Similar for you and Paul?
Absolutely, absolutely. I want her to know that there is so much out there she can do, and that I will support whatever that decision is. Whether you want to have 10 kids and you want to be home with them full time, you want to go to school and you choose not to have children, it is all about choices. And Mom and Dad don't always make the best choices.
Absolutely.
And
I can attest to that one. Thank you.
And when we don't, we have conversation about it, and we decide, do we need to make a different choice? Is there truly not another choice, and this is the best one in the moment? So it's constant recreation of the family, of what does parenting mean. And I've always been the type of person that my work is not just about a job I go to. My work for me is, once I left the business world, because I knew that was not where I really needed to be or was supposed to be. and decided to go into the world of, I guess we'll just say teaching.
Right.
Is pretty much what I've been doing no matter where I've been, education, teaching to some degree. I come from a family of educators. I mean, that's a very high value of mine. So whatever that means, it needs to be something that I'm comfortable doing, and it's me. We work together.
Yes.
We live
nicely.
our work.
Yes. Right.
And it's what we do.
Right.
I don't want to be different when I'm at work than I am at home. I'm pretty much me no matter where you're going to see me.
Correct.
And that's how I want my daughter to grow up to feel.
I believe they call that being authentic.
I think they do call that being authentic.
Being authentic.
Absolutely.
And there's a nice ring to that, and it's also a nice way to live. The stress can be much less, and your health can be much more enhanced.
Absolutely.
And the purpose of us doing the show is really to help folks in the audience to really appreciate that we are all going through life transitions, and that we can assist one another through these transitions.
Absolutely.
If we can also know the process that we go through. One of the things that will pop up on the screen is actually a little grid that will show what we've been talking about, which is the process of transition.
Okay.
And transition really is a place where there is an ending. It starts with an ending. It then moves to a neutral zone, which is where the place that you can really feel kind of crazy sometimes.
Right.
It's also the great place of creativity.
Absolutely.
And then the actual third part of a transition truly is when you're at a new beginning. And the new beginning is where you wake up in the morning and you're home with a child, or you've made the decision to return back to work.
Right.
And you go back to work and you walk in that door for the first day. And for me, when I did that transition, because I took time off and stayed home with our daughter for 3 months, walked back in the door after 3 months, and I felt somewhat guilty for not feeling guilty. I loved walking back into where I worked and went back to yet another love.
Right.
And there wasn't a competition.
Right.
It was simply, I was fortunate to have the love of now being a mom and the love of my work.
Absolutely.
Enjoying the folks that I was working with and those folks that I was being of service to.
Absolutely.
And so that was that new beginning yet again.
And that makes so much sense, what you're saying. And I agree that there is, unless we are, and it's about role modeling. We want our daughters and sons to grow up to recognize that the choices we make for us, for our families, are so profound. And I know so many people, and when I say women, it is women, and there are, thankfully, a lot more dads that are choosing, their families are choosing that the dad stays home, and I think it's becoming much more accepted that we put ourselves in the place of feeling guilty. Because I agree with you. I am very much like you. I like to work.
Yes.
I feel great when I'm working. And that is very, very important to me. Because I love to work does not mean I don't also love to be with my child.
Right.
And me working allows me to be effective, happy, and balanced, which is what I want her to be.
And I know that my daughter can feel if I'm stressed and pushed and pressured, and so can my husband, so can our other family members, so can those around me. And I'm not interested in bringing that kind of energy into any relationship, whether it be the office or it be my home or it be socially with my friends.
Absolutely.
So there's all these lovely balances we go through, all these neat transitions. I really want to thank you today. I really enjoyed our conversation. We've had the opportunity to have Yvette Brindle-Decancq be with us and have a great conversation around the transformation of going from the professional world, the world of work, into being a parent, and then returning back into that world of work and doing it with a sense of grace to the best of our abilities, compassion, and an awful lot of patience. We want to thank you for more information, or if you would like to have a conversation or share new topics for this program, please feel free to note the information that is being shown on the screen, and we would be glad to contact you. Again, this is The Art of Transitions, and we want to thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
program was produced through Penfield Community Television in Penfield, New York.